Okay, everyone, I pulled some of the treads because I wanted to see what they were like, because if this is a single tread, this is going to be a nightmare. I don't think it's supposed to be a single tread, because I've never seen a single tread with a groove down the center for teeth, and this has a groove down the center for teeth. So that means it's supposed to be a dual tread, and we have rollers on each side of this thing, so that leads more evidence to it. A third roll, and I just cut them off pretty loosely. This isn't trimmed or anything. Another thing that comes to mind is just how big is this thing? Well, I got a ruler here. These are centimeters, and you can tell because if I get 2.5, that's about an inch. Okay? So if I measure this thing, and we'll start at number 1, because, well, everyone has always told me never start from the top. That's 4 centimeters tall from here to here. And if we take our 4 centimeters, and this is 1/44 scale, and we take 4 times 1/44, I get 57.6 centimeters. You know, you move it over 2 places, that's 5.76 meters. Okay? Now, what is that in, what kind of units is that, right? Well, let's find out what that is in feet. Okay, that's got to be wrong. Okay, so I made a mistake there. Let me do this again. It's 5 centimeters times 1/44. And I'm going to mark it as centimeters on this thing. And if I convert that to feet, I hit the wrong buttons on my converter here. I haven't used this thing in a very long time. That's part of it. It's 23 feet. So that thing's 23 feet tall, just the treads. That's big. Now, to give it some idea of scale, I've got some 1/44 figures here from the Millennium Falcon kit. And if well, we got to change the background because white on white doesn't work very well. That's kind of hard for you guys to see. But you can see the figures right here. And if I put the tread next to it, you can see this thing's dwarfing them. So this thing's going to come out to be a good 3 or 4 stories tall. Once it's built. This thing is a very large thing. I mean, 23.5 feet isn't minor when you look at this thing. I mean, it really is not minor. 23.5 tall, and that's just a tread. So I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be a single tread. Way too big. Okay? I'd hate to blow a big tread like that. Anyhow, I'm going to stop for a little bit. I'll come back in a bit, because what I really came up here to do, not talk scale of this thing, because that is kind of important. But the other thing I came up here to do is to talk about lighting. But in order to light it, I kind of got to get the head apart. I kind of got to put the head together. I got to see if there's even room in the head of this thing for a lighting kit. Because if there's no room for a lighting kit, there's no point in doing lighting. So let me work on the head for a little bit, and I'll come back and show you guys what I've done and what the head looks like. And if I think I can put some lighting into it, I might just light this guy up. I might not as well, because I like to leave the mobility of the kits there, and this thing's arms can move, body can rotate and all that. And when you start running wires through things that are moving, you start getting frightening. Because you can get bends and kinks in the wires, you can get shorts and all sorts of things if the wires start moving around too much. So, let me take an evaluation. I'll be back in a little bit and let you guys know. Okay, everyone. These are the head parts. The important parts. There's 3 or 4 other parts that go on there, but if we're going to talk about lighting, here's the parts we need to talk about. If this was 100 scale, like a master grade, it would be pretty easy to light up. There would be enough room in there, and it wouldn't be any trouble. But this is not a master grade kit. So what we need to do is talk about what is going on here. Now, this part right here, this is where the glass sits, right there, like that. It sits right in front of this. Now my problem is we need to look at the underside to see if there's room for lighting. There is a poly cap right there. Now that poly cap is there so the neck can twist. I can turn the head right and left. That's why that poly cap's there. It allows mobility in the head. Now this poly cap has some T's on it. It has a long line across the top here. That line is to help hold the poly cap in place. So when you're turning the head, the poly cap's not turning inside the head. The head is spinning on the ball, the socket joint that it goes onto. Okay? Now, in order to do lighting, I would have to hollow part of this out in order for those visors to light up. Now, what I could do is just hollow out 2 holes for eyeballs. Also, there's a little lamp up here at the top. It should glow red. Okay? And I don't know if you guys can see that, but if I get the wonderful zoom on this thing has a lot more room to it. There we go. Now everyone should be able to see the little dot up at the top of this thing. Yeah, you can tell how small it is because, you know, that's my index finger. It's not real big. So the problem is when you turn this over, because the lighting would have to come from here, you have a structure behind there to support that poly cap, okay? And that structure is there to keep this poly cap fixed in place. Now, here's the question. Do I want the head to be able to spin, or do I want to lock the head down in place? If I lock the head down in place, then the poly cap is unnecessary. As soon as you remove the poly cap, there's room for a little surface mount LED in there. Okay, an SM LED. There's room. You could run some wires, some magnet wire out of there into the torso and then use regular wire from the torso. I don't like using magnet wire too much because it's not designed to carry a heavy current, and it's very thin and small and fragile, and you put too much power through it, you'll melt that magnet wire. It's just how it's designed. Okay? Now, having said that, the question is this: do I want to do that lighting? I'm pretty sure I could drill into the top up here because it looks to be hollow. Drill into the top up there and run a really fine fiber through there and paint into that fiber red so it glows red. And you'd have to use a pretty heavy red paint on that. I'd have to hollow this out so that this visor sits on there. I'm sure I can do that because I've done worse than that before. Okay? But I don't know if I want to lose the mobility of the head. I like trying to keep the mobility of these models intact when I build them, along with the lighting if I'm going to light it. The Maquet kit is fun because I kept the mobility on that and kept using the poly caps. Most people don't. Most people just lock them in place in a static pose. So I'm going to think about it over the next day or two. I could do it, but I'd have to lock it down, and it would be an awful lot of work to do. Not that I'm against that kind of work, but what's the return on it? How much of the rest of the kit am I going to do lighting on? That's the other question. And when I start looking over the body of the kit, you know, parts like this one, who broke itself off the sprue, I don't really see much here that would require any lighting. I just don't. When I look at the box art on this thing, I don't see it. There's almost nothing other than that little dot on the head and the visor. Okay? Now locking that head down, again, probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. And probably be okay, but I just don't see the return on it. What I'd rather spend my time doing is building a devastated city base where this thing has been trekking around mowing down small houses, because it's the size of an office building. So I'd rather spend my time doing that because I think that would be more fun for me. So I don't think I'm going to light it. Being honest with you guys, this is going to be a short video. I'll take some photos of the parts in question here and let everyone know what's going on. Now, one thing about this kit, though, is it is very, very well designed. I put these 2 parts in. Now, the sprue attachment points on these parts. On this part, there's one up here at the top. If I can get this back out. And there's one on the end of this nub and on the end of this nub. Well, a part goes over that, a part goes over that, and a part goes over the sprue attachment point up there. I'm going to back the camera up just a little bit. Make sure I stay on frame. Okay? So when you put this in here, all the sprue attachment parts for this guy will disappear. The pins are orientated only one way, so you can only put it in there one way. Now, the sprue attachment points on this one are here, here, and there's one over here. Now, when you put this part in, all those attachment points go underneath parts that are already existing. So cleaning up the parts is very, very simple to do. That's a big, beefy looking head. It's missing 3 parts. There's a cap that goes across the top here, and there are 2 earpieces that go on either end. And then this part, and that head goes together really fast and really well. I'm going to see if I can put that part in after I put the head together. It's possible I can't, which will mean heavy masking when I go to paint it. But that's the way it is. I would expect that, to be honest with you. Okay? Because some people don't paint these things. That's why they're molded in color. Alright, so having said that, let me take a few photos of this so I can put them up. And you guys feel free to comment. I mean, tell me what you think about my plan. I really don't think I'd light it. I'd rather build a kind of diorama out of it and make a nice base out of it. Scratch build some crushed buildings and stuff. Because to me, that would be fun. Alright, so I'll be back in a little bit. I hope you've enjoyed this so far.